the Makers from the Shupiano Pro Happy Hour Delegate, MakerDAO Happy Hour. I'm your host, Frank Cruz. I'm flying solo today, a day before we kick off ETH Warsaw, right?
Yeah, here in Warsaw, Poland.
So I'm joined today. Actually, the Meet the Maker guest of the hour is TADEO of Data Insights Core Unit. He's the facilitator for the Data Insights Core Unit, and he's been a Maker community member now for I think maybe 24 months, maybe 36.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure 2 years.
2 years.
A little bit more.
Yeah, it's quite a long time. Pretty sure you guys have seen this guy. Some of you guys might not know. This is the reason why we do Meet the Makers, because it's important, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, that we get to know the Maker community members. So, yeah, welcome to the show, TADEO. You are.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You're a second guest, man, behind Derek Flossman. So there's some big shoes to fill, literally.
Yeah.
Even though you're pretty tall too. So. Yeah, man. So let's what's going on with you? How did you get into Maker? How did you find Maker? You don't necessarily need to go into your background of crypto and how you bought Bitcoin when it was like 50 cents or 25 cents.
I wish that would be my case.
But what were you doing before MakerDAO, and how did you find MakerDAO?
Cool. So what was I doing? So I went to university. I kind of studied economics and psychology. Really liked that area, and ended up working in a fintech just after the 2008 crisis. I was actually there in New York when it happened, so that was kind of like a very important moment for me. That's where I realized like finance was such an important like intrinsic part of life. I really wanted like to work on that. The university I did internships at financial institutions. Realized I didn't really like the culture, even like the nice side of the culture. It wasn't for me. So then I left, finished university, was doing research at the university, and then I moved on to working at fintech because I really liked I was kind of like the slow pace of academia. Again, didn't really fit me. And there I really enjoyed my time there. I kind of wanted to do more, ended up going to consulting, which had its advantages, but like for most of it, like there was definitely not it was more of like a cultural clash happening there. I was part of a team that we developed a really cool forecasting and optimization system for cash for Fortune 500 companies. I was really excited about that, and then...
Wait, it was optimizing for cash?
Yeah, essentially, so you forecast how much cash is going to come in and out in the next, let's say, next year, and then based off that, how you distribute that cash around your global organization.
Got it.
What's the best place to put it for to get yield coming from different basically, it's kind of like doing like global arbitrage in a way. But again, it's more like treasury based. It's not really about like making the money. It's just making sure that you gain like a minimum amount of yield. Coming to your treasury. So basically, through that, my boss got fired. So I think I spent like about a year and a half just being like the only person that knew the system and just being there doing sales calls and nothing else. So I was like pretty bored at that point, and that's when Maker found me. Maker didn't find me, actually. It was Juan, who is now the current SCS facilitator.
Yeah.
He was, I think it was like maybe 3 months into Maker, and he started asking me if I could join the calls, onboarding calls. He's like, no, I think you'll really like it. You'll help me out because there's not that many people in the call and so on. And I remember like I was super frustrated a few calls because I really didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And like little by little I got more into it, and he kept feeding me. It's like, oh, here's a Rocket Chat, and oh, here's a forum. And it's basically just grew in a big bowl where I was
This is the old days of the Rocket Chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old days, yeah.
I remember being like going to different channels and seeing like you have like 200 unread messages and trying to read them all and trying to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And so through that, I remember like one of the GNR calls, Nick, the facilitator for Oracles, was mentioning that they were spending a bit too much gas to run them,
yeah,
and that they didn't want to make it too risky by basically making them like too basically expanding the range at which they execute. So I was like, I remember like chatting with Juan and be like, this is just a sensitivity analysis. And he's like, yeah, build it. I'm like, yeah, but they're doing this already. I was like, no, like, just go and build it. So turn around, I handed it in, and like, they're super happy with it. And actually, Global Alpha reached out. I'm not sure it was like Long or Pros. They reached out and like told me a little, like gave me a little more of an intro about Maker. That got me super excited, and I was kind of like, that's when I talked with Seb, and other people in the community, Team Black as well, current delegates. At that point, there was no delegates. And it was such a welcoming environment, and people giving me so much of their time just to explain to me what was going on, that I felt like really appreciative of that and kind of want to give it back. And yeah, building a little web app called What Backs My DAI. So basically, it was really just essentially pie chart showing the breakdown of the collateral that was backing the system at that moment. And through there, I met the data team. At that point, it was Tomek leading the data team of the foundation.
Right.
Kept in contact with them, and then once they created once the foundation dissolved and they created the core unit, the data core unit, I interviewed with them and started working with them. And yeah, it's been less than a year, but it feels so much like it's been so much longer.
It feels like it's been 5 years, right? 5, maybe 10 years. Yeah, you age pretty quickly in MakerDAO. So with regards to the data insights core units, you are now the facilitator.
Yep.
How did it feel for you to take over the role? I know that Tomasz, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly,
Yeah, better than me.
he decided to go on, and he has his own company that's Token Flow, for those that don't know. And how did it feel like when he moved on, and obviously you had to take over as the facilitator?
So he brought up with me about this, like this idea that he underestimated the amount of time he needed to devote to Token Flow, so he wasn't able to dedicate the amount of time he really wanted to Maker and data insights, and that he had seen me work in the last few months, and he was very happy, and he thought that I was very capable of doing it. I essentially said no. First time ago, I was like, nah, like I'm not going to be able to like hit the mark that you need me, or that the community needs me to. And through that conversations, and then we went into the budget cycle. At that point, it became evident that it was quite necessary to have a full-time facilitator. There was a lot of things that we really, even though we're a small team, like there was the amount of I think the amount of projects, potential initiatives that we had at that moment, that even today it's insane. Like my backlog is so large. So at that point, I was like, I was kind of convinced that I could kind of. I think I had mentally prepared myself like for a couple, like throughout that process, being like, if I am this person in this position, am I happy with the decision I'm taking and the way I'm running things? So that's kind of when I took over, and and here we are.
Very nice. And now you're a team of what, 4 or 5?
No, we're still 3 people.
3 people.
Yeah.
It's Piotrek
and Leo and myself.
and yourself. Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
Small but mighty.
And I think there was a time and point where perhaps you were thinking of adding. If I remember, I saw you. I believe it was at DEF CON, which is Amsterdam, or ETH Amsterdam. I have no idea. I always forget what these things are called. And you were thinking of adding on. I mean, at that time, you know, the market was a bit different than what it is today.
Yep.
What was your thought process there when you were looking to add on versus today, where the protocol is actually looking to try to save money?
So when it comes to data, essentially we are a very, let's say, supporting function, to be honest. Like, it's great to have us, but if you don't have us, like, you can still run, like the smart contracts will still run in a way. I'm oversimplifying this, but it's great to have us and like be able to support the different core units. But it's a function that is not a revenue generating function. So in that case, it's more of there's, as I said, like we have so many potential projects that we can do. It's more of what is really necessary and where we really bring the most value at that time, at each time. Again, in a growth mentality in the bull market, it makes sense to expand and to do as much as you can, because some projects might not get the same return on investment that you expected to, but you still get some. Rather, here it's more like turning it all down to be able to hit the marks that what you really need. Like where's like the necessary mandatory things that it's important for the protocol to support. So yeah, as you mentioned, it's the mentality is more of before it was like, okay, how many more things we can do, and now it's more of like, let's pick our battles and choose exactly what is will bring the most amount of value, and then the other projects will come in the future, but maybe not right now.
Yeah, and so speaking of picking your battles, I know one of the battles that 3F Delegate, which I support, has actually one of the focuses for us and even for you guys has been building RWA dashboards, real world assets dashboards that can possibly bring data to the community, to MKR token owners, not on a daily basis, but maybe on a quarterly or maybe even on a monthly would be nice, in my opinion. How has that shifted now that, you know, there's a pivot with the real world finance team, more than likely not going to be existing in the near future? What are your thoughts there as far as how you guys focus now? What exactly, I guess you probably are looking at layer 2s. So what's your thinking there to make sure that Data Insights continues to, you know, innovate along with the protocol?
Yeah. So I think key here is this idea of being a supporting function, that we need to be able to run at the same speed as the other teams, the DAO. And it also means that whatever plans we have, we kind of have to adapt to the moment, to what's happening in the other teams. So when it comes to real assets, we had an expectation there will be much more deals happening in there, and there will be much more work. We simply shifted priorities, or really workload. We're still supporting real assets. Actually, the deals that we do have, like HB Bank and SocGem, they're still getting processed, and they'll start sending us data, and we'll do the work that we need to do. And now we just simply realize that we can do more on the L2 side. So it's really about managing resources and putting the bets where, like, you know, again, we'll get the most value.
Got it. And would you, last question about the core unit, and we'll move on to something else, but you break down like the role of Piotr, your role, and Leo's role. So how do you guys handle a 3-man core unit? I know you're a facilitator. If you can just give us a little bit of background of what a facilitator is supposed to do in this case as a Data Insights core unit, and what someone like Piotr, which I believe works on some of the front end stuff or maybe the back end stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, and Leo, and what's his role?
Yeah. So I feel maybe their role as developers is a little bit more clean cut. They're both, you can call them back-end developers or data engineers. They're working on getting the data from the blockchain onto our database, cleaning it up, and then setting up the different interfaces. We just serve the data to users, like an API or Google Sheets or like a web app in that case. Both are pretty multidisciplinary. They both work on the front end stuff, pipelines, database, so they pretty much share the work. I take more of a, let's say, call it like project manager role of like delineating what's needed, interfacing with other teams and users, or what needs are there, and like what we need to work on. And then on the facilitator side, it's also kind of like added on, is more of making sure the community is aware of what we're doing, getting the feedback from the community of how we basically how the team is doing as well, and what the perception is, and kind of dealing with it's kind of like being aware of what's going on in the DAO, which is again by virtue it's a lot. It's happening. It's very parallelized. So it's more like having a wide view of what's going on.
Yeah, it makes sense. And as you heard it here, Data Insights core unit is not just this good-looking guy here, but also it's Piotr and Leo. So make sure you guys understand that it is a team, and they might not be the most active individuals on the forum or on the Discord, but there are other people to Data Insights. So it's important that this show, Meet the Makers, brings that to all of you guys who get to watch this. But let's move on to something that I want to talk about. I'm really excited about. You're originally from Argentina, correct? What are some of the things that you can tell us about that's happening over there with DAI, the stablecoin, and how it does help Argentinians? I think a lot of times, as an American, myself and other MakerDAO community members totally forget that there's a world outside the US. So excuse us for that, but What's some of the things that are happening in Argentina that Americans like myself or other people from Europe, since we're here in Europe, that they can learn that DAI is doing for the greater good of the world? You can give us an example, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So I've lived now, I think, almost half of my life in Europe. So I've kind of seen both sides, and I think it's like and not just DAI Maker, but in general, like crypto in Europe, and I guess in the Americas, pretty much the same. You see as like the only point that's been seen from crypto is like the speculative side. And really, the really big value proposition of crypto is creating an alternative system to the current financial system that is pretty much intertwined with the governmental system. You don't really see that value unless you see your institutions fail you. And thankfully, in Europe, in most of Europe and in the US, that hasn't been the case. Unfortunately, in Latin America, and particularly in Argentina, those institutions have failed the people repeatedly. I was a kid back in 2001 when the
Cinquilla. Got my happy hour drink, but go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry. I was there when there was like the financial crisis happened in Argentina. Essentially, the government, what they froze everyone's bank accounts. The peso at that time was trading 1-to-1 against the dollar, pretty much artificially propped up by the government selling their dollar reserves. And then one day to the other, they depegged and it went to 4-to-1, meaning that anyone in Argentina had lost their savings, had lost like 3/4 of their value. And we often say that Argentina has been in this like slow crisis for several decades. So in that environment where your institutions are failing you day in, day out, it's really valuable having a alternative system to that. So that's what DAI is being able to provide right now. It's able to allow people to save money at the end of the day. And if you think about it, the ability to save allows you to be able to think into the future. If you don't have enough money to be able to like think about tomorrow, well, we have more of that. You're living day by day.
Yeah. You're
living in a more like a survival state rather than in a growth state. So for me, that's like it's invaluable for that. Like all of DeFi that right now is, we can say it's quite speculative and it's pretty much just like people with money trading. Like you need to think like there's infrastructure being created to be able to save and have a yield, to be able to borrow without needing to have a background check done on you, to be able to transact with your friends without having to pay massive fees or actually being restricted by the government.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, censorship, right? That's something that most of us in the US, Europe, and other parts of the world we don't experience. But do you have any friends there that are currently using DAI that they report back to you and how important it is to have the ability to have DAI? Do you have any friends right now currently there?
Yeah. So my high school friends are quite, I think most of them are still there. The big thing for them is, something I did forgot to mention is, Argentina is running on a, I think like right now 60% inflation. And this brings me back...
50? 1.5?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, 50.
50.
Or 60, I think, even more. And it brings me back to Mariano Conti's talk in Osaka.
That's
which
right.
is like how I survived Argentina's 50% inflation. Well, that's still ongoing. That's still the thing. So you need to understand about that means that like every month you are doing the same job, you're earning less money, effectively.
Yeah.
So essentially, there's a lack of, let's say, stability to everyone's life. Even if you're well educated and you have a high-paying job, that money you can't plan it ahead. Like every month, again, it's worth less and less and less. So for them, the idea of using crypto, it's kind of like allows them to abstract away from this crisis and allows like get some stability. So like, a lot of them are saving in crypto. They're paying each other debt in crypto because if you lend me money today, it's how much money am I going to give you next month? What's the current rate, or what the rate of what you gave me? So it kind of forces you to say, hey, there's this system like it's way more stable. I can't believe I'm saying like more stable in crypto, but it is really more stable than the current system that they live in.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of us tend to forget, that there are a lot of humans out there that can benefit from this amazing technology, and and great products like, in my opinion, of like DAI. I think Mendoza, the city of Mendoza is accepting, I don't know if you saw the news headlines, they're accepting crypto for tax payments.
Really?
Yeah. So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. You know Mendoza is supposed to be a really nice
province.
It's a province. It's a province, okay. So it's not a state, it's a province. But speaking of Argentina and Mendoza, can you give us a little bit of color there? What's going on? I heard there's a lot of like really good developers there, and I actually met someone at Consensus in Austin, Texas, that told me that they built a centralized company in Mexico for travel agencies. They were doing pretty good, but the guy, he's from Mexico, and all his employees are from Argentina. So everything is outsourced down to Argentina, and apparently he's recruiting these individuals from the universities, right? Do you have any sense what's going on there? Supposedly there's a lot of talented folks down in Argentina.
There is. Argentina's like, there's a lot of like really good technical talent, and not just in development, but it's also in law and medicine. And it's also this idea, because these people are living in this system, which is kind of I don't want to call it survival, but in a way like you need to be worrying about a lot of things all the time. So you need to be like essentially be very creative in the ways that you handle your day-to-day life. That I think it works really well for having people that are very interested in crypto and actually being able to build in very creative ways. Because I think that's something that's very key. Not only you need to be good on a technical level, you also need to be highly creative to come up with these very innovative systems.
That's true, and hopefully we'll see more Argentinians working in this ecosystem. But look, we get to the portion of our little segment here where we enjoy some kind of libation or drink. This is an old-fashioned with a local bourbon, which I can't seem to remember now, but
I'm really fond of the circular ice.
Oh yeah, this ice is amazing. Yeah. Look at that. It's engineered to actually not melt. But it's it's an old-fashioned, one of my favorite libations of all time. What about you? What were you drinking
today
there?
I'm drinking a very select ginger beer. It's non-alcoholic. It's
show the label.
Thomas Henry Spicy Ginger.
Thomas Henry Spicy Ginger.
It's actually great.
And you pretty much finished it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And
voracious drinker.
Man, that was quick. So cheers to everyone. Do you want to describe that, how it tastes? All right.
They're not lying with the spiciness. It feels quite spicy, which I'm pretty happy about. It's very gingery. And so, that mixed with like the big glass with like ice, for me is 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. All right. So actually we rate them 1 to 5, so you would give that a 5.
5.
All right. Thomas Henry Spicy Ginger. I gotta remember that. Thomas Henry Spicy Ginger. Very cool. This is an old-fashioned with actually almost feel like this bartender put Woodford Reserve in here, because we were trying to communicate in his English and my English, and he was trying to tell me that I should stick with Woodford Reserve. So I'm going to assume this is Woodford Reserve, but I will ask him. But this is a very nice cocktail. We're at this bar. Aura. Yeah, just like the aura. Feel the aura. And it's in, what street is this? You have
if I knew, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it.
I'll post the link on the forum on YouTube. And yeah, if you get a chance to be in Warsaw, by the way, what's your impression of Warsaw so far?
Oh, I love it. This is my second time here. Absolutely love it. It's a small city, but it has kind of everything that you're trying to get.
You think it's a small city? I think it's pretty decent size, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, have you walked, have you gone to the river yet or not yet?
Yeah, I love the river. Like there's tons of like restaurants and bars next to it.
Yeah, very beautiful city, highly recommend it. All right, so let's get into the last subject here, the end game.
The end game.
The end game state. Today is a day before E4, so it's Wednesday, last day of August actually.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, September 1st.
Summer has gone pretty quickly.
It's gone pretty quick. Crypto summer hasn't been the most fun, but we're alive, we're surviving, we're going. Some of us are looking forward to the end game. Some of us might not be looking forward to the end game. What's your initial thoughts on the end game? Have you had a chance to look at the last version, the version 3 proposal? It's pretty long, so I don't blame you if you haven't.
No, so I've been attending the calls that Rune is having.
DVC calls. Yes.
The VC calls. So I've seen that kind of like grown. What I realized is like I think I'm too much into the details. So like I care much more about the implementation, and like most of the content there is more about the big ideas and what's happening in the next 5 years. But I think it's like there's a lot of things that I quite like. That I think it's talking to you and actually Shupi, the absent co-host of the show, that have prompted me to kind of understand how they can actually happen in real life. It's super interesting. I'd say it feels sometimes a little bit dramatic, and I think it's a combination of Rune's communication style plus the focus that we have from the media, that anything that gets said gets published the next day.
Right.
I don't know if you get this, but like I get asked by people outside Maker quite a bit of what's happening, what's going on, like are you guys really depegging tomorrow? And it's like, no, don't worry about it. It's, like, it's not tomorrow, but it's coming. But yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, you know, Rune posted more of a clarification of how the first 3 years to get the meta DAOs going is going to occur, which is that there's 3 different kinds of stance. There's the pigeon stance, the eagle stance. They all have a different meaning, by the way, and the phoenix stance, which is the last resort to protect against real-world assets. When I say real-world assets, they could be anything from USDC to something like wrapped Bitcoin from BitGo.
I would go. It's like centralized collateral.
Right.
I quite agree with that. To be honest, I come from. I think like at the start of this year, I was really into the idea that our objective is to enable DAI to become a global currency. So for that, it cannot be limited by the market cap of crypto itself. It needs to be bigger than that. It needs to be leading that market cap forward. And for that, you can end up in at least the conversation I've had is like, you end up with like, you need to be into real assets. You need to be providing loans to be able to expand the supply to that level where there's so much deep liquidity and it's worldwide that anyone can use it and participate in it. We've seen with Luna Cash, like basically we've realized that it is very easy for, let's say, centralized authorities to just simply like shut us down.
To censor,
to censor us kind of willy-nilly. So like we're losing, although we are in a lot of ways, we're really caring about decentralization and resiliency, not only on the code that we put out, but also on the way we create the organization. It's a shame that in just that single point of failure it could be catastrophic. So I think I agree his point of view is like it's a balancing act, and this idea of having the eagle, like comparing like the pigeon to the eagle, where you basically remove the mixture of real assets from, basically it can be, the pigeon can technically be 100% if it wants to be, while in the eagle we just reduce it like intensely up to like a maximum of 25%. 25%, yeah. Meaning like if that for whatever reason goes wrong, it doesn't really like break the entire system. I think that's going to be key for the growth of the protocol moving forward.
Yeah, and to be clear, 3 years would be the pigeon stance, and the analogy there is that a pigeon, if you take a look at pigeons, I was walking around the city actually, there was one sitting down. I'll try to post a photograph, because I took a picture of this pigeon like just laying down like this, and eyes like just waiting for any human to come close to it so it can like just move away, right? So pigeon stance just means is that we are, you know, vigilant, we are aware of what's going on, we're keeping up with what the regulators are guiding, right? And hopefully as an American I can say that I've been waiting for guidance for like what feels like you know, over 10 years, even though I haven't been in crypto that long. But yeah, so that's the reference to the pigeon stance. And
yeah, it's this idea that you can cohabitate in the city with humans and all the systems are around.
There you go, just like a pigeon. Yes.
Yeah, and that you're aware that that any moment something can change, and that's the thing. That's kind of what I think it's like the waiting game, where if we go into like try to grow as much as possible, we expose ourselves to these attack vectors, and while those attacks are not done create themselves, like we're good, and that's fine. It's like the moment that those attack vectors start like getting created or being pushed, that we need to be able to protect ourselves, essentially. So like for example, here in Europe, we unfortunately there's a new regulation called MiCA that is like being worked on and proposed.
MiCA.
It's pretty scary the way that it's being proposed. Like, I mean, it's very easy to say from our point of view, but it really does feel that it's the regulators are not really understanding the potential. They're not regulating correctly. This would essentially, in my point of view, MiCA would just basically just shut down the entirety of crypto, at least DeFi altogether, and that's not really the point. The really point is like really coming together and like having like appropriate regulation that allows protects users while at the same time allowing for innovation.
Yeah, totally. I actually saw on CoinDesk this week that South Korea, I'm pretty sure it was South Korea, is looking at adopting and kind of the Central Bank of South Korea actually, not any other regulatory agency, but the Central Bank said that they are recommending similar guidelines as to MiCA from Europe. So
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like it's kind of attempting, I guess, this, let's say, powers will generate this type of reaction. The important thing is, are we able to evolve and survive through this to then flourish in the future? I think I really like someone mentioned is at some point there was the separation of church and state. Here we're attempting the separation of state and capital.
That's well put. Well put. I like that. I like that. So yeah. So if we can, if we can kind of stay at an even keel where the the pigeon stands actually can survive, beyond 3 years, then I think actually DAI can continue to sort of have a decent amount of collateral types that are RWA back, right? RW real world assets that are backing DAI, as opposed to now where you have, and it's no secret, mostly USDC backing up the most collateral behind DAI. So what do you think of the odds that in 3 years things haven't changed, or that regulators kind of give MakerDAO and DAI and any other decentralized stablecoin a fair shake? We say fair shake in the US, meaning that we gave you a fair deal, and it's like, look, we looked at you and like, hey, run with it, you're okay, it's a fair shake.
I mean, I usually tend to be quite pessimistic.
Pessimistic, okay.
Which helps me, because then things come out better than I expected. So I'm always happy about it.
Just like a pigeon, you're just ready for the... No, I'm joking.
No, for me, I like the fact that we're spearheading real assets. The fact that we've signed a deal with one of France's biggest banks.
Yeah, SocGen, yep.
That we're doing a deal with HBB Bank in the US.
Yep.
I think we need to do more of that and attempt. Again, it's quite hard to move into a new different jurisdiction because once you crack one jurisdiction, at least it's easier to work now with like other French banks, for example. But I think it's important for us to move to jurisdictions and have that widespread approach.
Diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think for us, I think that's a key. Because again, there will be governments, and it'll be, again, governments at the end of the day is a political party that is in power at that moment in time, and it doesn't convey the emotions and let's say the will of the entire nation. So I think there will be situations where we'll have a state unfriendly to us. So if we are well diversified, we'll be able to focus on the other states that are actually friendly to crypto and the potentials that we can bring.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And this is one of the reasons why it's no secret, I've been pretty loud about being a proponent of the end game. So I am looking forward to seeing how things shake out, so to speak. And I think the biggest message that we can send out to the maker community is that this is not going to happen, by the end of this year. Like, I think I was talking to one of the guys that co-host when Shupi or I aren't available, which is Ralph, who's going to be here from Flipside Crypto. Shout out to Flipside Crypto. And he mentioned that he would be disappointed if we don't even get to at least have one MetaDAO rolled out, right? So by the end of December 31st, will that happen? I don't know. Will the end game even get voted in? I have no idea. That remains to be seen. But I'm hopeful that it will. I mean, personally, I don't see any other proposals. But if the end game does not get passed, do you have any idea what could work? If you don't, you don't, because that's just a tough one.
I actually do. No, because again, for me, the end game is very much a long-term plan. I think there's other things that we can do in the meantime that are aligned with the end game plan, particularly the project-based budgeting. These ideas, like rather than like thinking about we're budgeting or giving money to specific core units, is that we're actually giving money to projects. And then whether those get fulfilled by core units or basically by teams exclusive to Maker or by teams that are a mixture or they're coming from the outside, I think that gives a lot more flexibility. It goes along with our ideals of decentralization. I'm really excited about that. So I think even if Endgame Plan gets voted in, I think this concepts of project-based budgeting makes sense to apply them in the short term to get to the Endgame Plan.
That's a proposal. Was that just a post that was posted?
No, for now it's just a post from SES coming from
SES.
Yeah.
From Juan, yes.
Yeah.
Facilitator Juan. So yeah, it's a super interesting proposal, and I do recall that there was a meet the delegates, not meet the delegates. Sorry, there was a delegate call that I believe Juan was involved in. It was explained to delegates. I believe it was on the delegates, but nevertheless, it's got lost in translation now because I don't even see people talking about it no more. So that's how busy MakerDAO is, right?
We do have a lot of things going on.
Too many things going on. All right, what are you looking forward to at E4 so the most?
Ooh, I hear the Oracle's team is about to present something good.
Really?
New. Yeah.
Ah.
That's the alpha I heard.
So alpha from the Oracle's team, you heard it here first. But by the time you see this video, it'll probably be public. But we'll try to get it up as fast.
I don't want to spread the surprise.
Yeah. So we'll wait for that. Yeah, looking forward to seeing Nick actually. And anything else you're looking forward to there?
Really just meeting people at Maker and in the community, and like in Web3 and I love this conferences. I've been an ardent proponent of remote work, and I really enjoy it, and it's great. But you need the human connection, and this is the perfect moment to like create this catalyst environment where you meet amazing people, great ideas, either with or within Maker or outside.
Outside of Maker, yeah. You went to the co-working group today, right? Co-working space, sorry.
Yeah. We're there with Nadia from Growth, Sam from PE, Piotr and myself from Diku, and we also had Tomek from Tokenflow hosting.
Oh no way! Very cool. Yeah. A lot of Ethereum ecosystem players, or not yet.
I feel we're the only ones in the co-working space.
Okay.
We'll be more soon.
It'll be more soon. All right, folks. TADEO, thank you for
having me.
Coming on to the Chupi Pro MakerDAO Delegate Happy Hour. Hopefully we'll get more folks on here. Maybe Piotrek will volunteer and we'll get to talk to Piotr. But yeah, peace.